How are you?
I'm great.
Why are you laughing?
I don't know.
You were brilliant. I'm trying to describe how amazing it was. You know what?
At only 12, Darci Lynne Farmer didn't just win America's Got Talent. She became a moment the world refused to forget. With a puppet in hand and a voice full of magic, she turned innocence into instant stardom. But fame has a way of holding people in place, even as they grow and change. As the years passed, the spotlight didn't fade. It shifted, bringing new pressures and expectations. The real story isn't about how she won, but what she faced after the applause faded. Let's break down the intriguing details. From silent fear to finding her voice, Darci Lynne Farmer was not just shy in the way most people understand it. Her kind of shyness could freeze an entire moment. Simple things like speaking to a stranger or making eye contact felt almost impossible. When her family went out, she would quietly hide behind her mother, letting her do all the talking. Yet inside that silence lived a powerful love for singing, a voice she was too afraid to share with the world. Her parents saw the struggle and refused to ignore it. They kept searching for something, anything, that could help her break free. At just 6 years old, they introduced her to beauty pageants, hoping the stage might slowly build her confidence. At the same time, she was pushed into elite gymnastics, training for long hours every single week. It was intense, demanding, and far from easy. But even with all that discipline and exposure, something was still missing. She was performing, yes, but she still wasn't fully expressing herself. Then came a moment that quietly changed everything. In 2014, at just 9 years old, Darci entered the International Cinderella Scholarship Program. Winning the title of International Mini Miss was a huge achievement, but the real impact came from someone she met there. Among the contestants was a teenage girl named Lisa Bonquisti, who did something Darci had never seen up close before. It wasn't just entertaining, it was different. It was bold, yet somehow safe. For Darci, that moment stuck. She couldn't stop thinking about it. For the first time, she saw a way to perform without fully exposing herself. It felt like the perfect bridge between fear and expression. She immediately asked her parents for a puppet, but they hesitated. To them, she was already juggling too much. Singing, gymnastics, school, it was already a full plate. Adding ventriloquism seemed unnecessary, but Darci didn't let it go. She kept asking, again and again, until just before her 10th birthday, her parents finally gave in. They bought her a simple puppet named Katie online. It didn't look like a life-changing moment at the time, but it turned out to be exactly that. Katie became more than just a toy. She became a shield, a partner, and a source of courage. With guidance from Lisa, Darci began to practice. She worked on simple sounds, tricky words, and small routines that slowly brought the puppet to life. But more importantly, she started to come alive too. Speaking through the puppet felt easier. It removed the fear. It gave her space to be bold in a way she had never been before. And the progress was fast. In just a few weeks, she was ready to step onto a local stage for a competition called Edmund's Got Talent. No one expected what happened next. She won. What started as a small step quickly became something much bigger. Something that hinted at a future no one had fully imagined yet. But as her confidence began to grow and her talent started gaining attention, a new question quietly formed. Was this just natural ability, or was there something more shaping her behind the scenes? Because rising that fast rarely happens alone. So, what kind of guidance did she receive from experts, and how did that influence the awards that soon followed? Keep watching to find out. The mentors and milestones that shaped her rise. The moment Gary Owen first watched her perform, something clicked instantly. He wasn't just seeing a talented child on stage, he was witnessing something rare. Without wasting time, he stepped in, offering guidance that would shape her future. Soon, he wasn't just a mentor, he became her business manager, helping her navigate a world that most kids her age could barely understand. But his influence didn't stop there. Sitting in his home was a puppet that had never found its place, a shy, gentle mouse named Oscar. That puppet had no real story, no voice, until she came along. Somehow she gave it life. What was once just an object became a character with emotion and personality. Around that same time, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Vocal coach Tiana Plemons joined in, helping refine her singing. Now, it wasn't just about making a puppet talk. It was about blending voice, emotion, and performance into one seamless act. Step by step, everything aligned. The raw talent had always been there, but now it had direction. From that point on, things didn't slow down, they sped up. Between 2014 and 2017, she moved from one competition to the next, gaining confidence with every performance. Local stages turned into bigger ones. Small wins turned into major victories. She didn't just participate, she dominated. First-place titles began stacking up, from Oklahoma contests to national stages like American Kids in Branson. Then came television. Her appearance on Little Big Shots introduced her to a wider audience, where she performed with a level of comfort that made it easy to forget her age. Not long after, she reached a milestone many performers never achieve: an invitation to the Vent Haven International Ventriloquist Convention. It's one of the most respected gatherings in that field, and she stood there at just 11 years old. At that point, it was no longer a hobby. It was clear she had found her path. And that path led straight to one of the biggest stages in the world. On May 30th, 2017, she walked onto America's Got Talent holding a pink rabbit puppet named Petunia. She looked nervous, like any 12-year-old would. But there was also something steady in her presence, something calm and focused. When Simon Cowell asked why she entered the show, her answer was simple: it was her dream. But more than that, she wanted to keep ventriloquism alive. That answer mattered. It showed she wasn't just chasing fame, she cared deeply about the craft. Then came the performance. She chose the song Summertime, a last-minute decision made 1 week before stepping on that stage. The song held meaning. It was something her father used to sing to her. As Petunia sang, she stood still, her lips barely moving. The illusion was so smooth that the audience couldn't look away. Within moments, everything changed. The crowd erupted. The judges stood. Mel B was emotional before pressing the golden buzzer, sending gold confetti pouring down. In that instant, her life shifted. What started as a quiet dream exploded into something global. The video spread like wildfire, reaching millions in days. But the real story wasn't just about going viral. It was about a girl who once struggled with confidence, someone who couldn't even maintain eye contact, now commanding a stage in front of the world without speaking as herself. And she didn't stop there. With each round, she raised the bar. New characters, sharper humor, stronger performances. By the time she reached the finals, she wasn't just a contestant, she was the one everyone was watching. Even when she had to learn an entire routine in a single day, she delivered it with ease, making something incredibly difficult look effortless. When the results were announced, she made history. Not just as a winner, but as someone who brought new life to an art form many thought was fading. But behind every flawless performance, every standing ovation, and every moment of confidence, there was something else quietly holding everything together. Because talent alone doesn't build a journey like this. What did it take from the people closest to her to keep this dream alive? Let's take a look at what the parent has to let go of in return. How her parents gave everything to fuel Darci Lynne's rise. Winning one of the biggest talent shows in the world should have been the final chapter for Darci Lynne Farmer. Instead, it became the beginning of something much bigger. She didn't just win with her voice, she won with the very tool that helped her find it in the first place. And almost overnight, her life changed in ways no one could fully prepare for. The demand for her performances exploded. Her homecoming show in Oklahoma sold out within minutes, forcing organizers to quickly add more dates. Soon after, she found herself performing on major stages, including a special New Year's Eve appearance at Caesar's Palace. The opportunities kept coming, faster than anyone expected. But behind the excitement, her family faced a serious decision. Should they lock her into a long Las Vegas residency, or choose a path that allowed her to grow at her own pace? They chose flexibility. Instead of tying her down too early, they leaned into touring. It was a bold move, especially for someone so young, but they believed it was the right one. And it wasn't just a small adjustment. The entire family shifted their lives around her rising career. Her father left his job, her mother stepped away from teaching, and together they built everything around this new reality. That decision quickly proved to be the right one. Her first major tour, Darci Lynne and Friends Live, started small but didn't stay that way for long. As ticket sales grew and audiences kept showing up, the tour expanded into something far bigger. Night after night, she filled seats, connected with crowds, and showed that she was more than just a one-time television sensation. She was becoming a real performer with lasting power. Television also continued to play a huge role in her journey. She returned to the spotlight again and again, appearing in specials, talk shows, and family programs. One of the standout moments came with her holiday special, where she shared the stage with well-known performers, proving she could hold her own alongside established names. Each appearance added something new to her image, but the core of her act never changed. The mix of singing, puppetry, and personality remained her signature. As time went on, she kept pushing herself creatively. When she returned to compete again in a Champions edition of the show, she surprised audiences with fresh performances. From powerful medleys to unexpected character moments, she showed growth and confidence. Even when she didn't take the top spot, it didn't slow her down. In many ways, it added another layer to her story. Her collection of puppet characters also grew, each one with a distinct voice and personality. These weren't just random creations. They felt personal, almost like different sides of her brought to life. Through them, she expressed emotions, humor, and confidence in ways that felt natural and real. And then there's the part many people don't fully understand: the money. That famous prize wasn't as simple as it sounded. The headline number looked huge, but the reality behind it was more complex, often spread out over many years or reduced depending on how it was taken. Still, what stood out wasn't just what she earned, but what she chose to do with it. One of her early decisions was to give back, supporting her church and showing a side of her that went beyond fame. Over time, her success grew far beyond that initial win. Through touring, appearances, and a strong online presence, she built a career that kept expanding. Millions followed her across different platforms, turning her into not just a stage performer, but a digital force as well. The little girl people first saw didn't stay the same. She kept evolving, learning, and building something much deeper. But as the spotlight followed her into new stages of life, another question began to rise. Could she continue growing within the image the world already knew, or was it time to step beyond it? Because sometimes, success creates a box just as much as it creates opportunity. And what happens when you're ready to break out of it and start finding a new path for your career? Let's break down the challenges she faces to achieve this. The untold evolution behind her fame. What makes her journey so gripping is not just the success she found after winning. It is the life she was forced to live, while the world never stopped seeing her as a child. Fame arrived early, and with it came a label that was hard to shake. To millions of people, she would always be that young, gifted girl on stage. But behind the scenes, she was growing up, changing, and slowly stepping into a new version of herself. This kind of early fame can feel like a dream at first. The applause, the attention, the doors that suddenly open. It all looks perfect from the outside. But for her, it came with a hidden cost. While the world celebrated her talent, she was quietly trying to understand who she really was beyond the stage. That struggle is something she has not hidden. Instead, she has spoken openly about how difficult it was to be recognized for a moment in her childhood, while her real life continued moving forward. After finishing high school in 2023, she did not rush into the usual path many expected. College could have been the next step, but her life had already taken a different direction. Years of touring and performing had replaced the typical teenage experience. While other students were attending classes, she was traveling, working, and carrying responsibilities far beyond her age. At one point, she considered studying musical theater. It seemed like a natural fit for someone with her background. But instead of moving forward quickly, she made a different choice. She paused. That pause was important. In a world that expected her to keep going, she chose to step back and reflect. In a candid moment during a 2026 interview, she admitted that she was still trying to figure out who she was and what she truly wanted from life. By that time, she had already spent years performing and traveling. That constant pressure can shape a person in ways that are not always visible. She has talked about experiencing anxiety, moments of self-doubt, and the feeling of wanting a normal life while living anything but normal. Even through the noise of fame, she held on to something personal, her faith. It remained a steady part of her life, even when she admitted that balancing her beliefs with the demands of the entertainment world was not always easy. That internal balance became one of the few anchors she could rely on. At the heart of her journey was a simple but powerful question. Who is she without the stage, without the puppets, and without the audience watching? That question followed her into quieter moments, especially during the global pause that forced many people to slow down and reflect. Instead of shutting down creatively, she used that time to explore songwriting. This shift marked the beginning of something new. Slowly, the public began to see a different side of her. The performer known for ventriloquism was now introducing her own voice in a different way. This evolution became clear when she appeared on AGT Fantasy League in 2024. During the semifinals, she made a bold decision. She performed an original song without any puppets at all. It was a risky move. It was not what many people expected from her. Some judges were not convinced, questioning whether she was moving too far away from what made her unique. But others recognized the courage it took to step away from the comfort of what she had always known. Even though she did not advance to the finals, the moment carried its own kind of victory. It was a statement that she was no longer willing to be defined by expectations placed on her as a child. She was ready to grow, even if that meant facing criticism along the way. From there, her journey into music continued to expand. She released original songs, each one revealing more of her voice and her story. Her work began to gain recognition not just as an extension of her past, but as something entirely her own. At the same time, she explored acting, taking on roles in films and television, and adding new layers to her career. With each new project, she continued to challenge the image that had been created for her years earlier. What once seemed like a simple act had now grown into a multi-layered career. And yet, despite all these changes, many still struggled to see her beyond the moment that made her famous. Let's explore the psychology behind this. Why audiences struggle to let performers grow. The moment someone rises to fame at a young age, something strange begins to happen. The public doesn't just celebrate the person, they begin to define them. And once that definition is set, it becomes incredibly difficult to change. This is what psychologists often refer to as the way audiences freeze people in time, locking them into a specific version of themselves that may no longer exist. For someone like Darci Lynne Farmer, the world didn't just see a talented performer on a stage. They saw a 12-year-old girl holding a puppet, smiling, singing, and astonishing millions. That image became the version of her that audiences wanted to keep. But while time moved forward for her, the public often struggled to move with her. This disconnect creates a quiet but powerful tension between who she is and who people expect her to be. Psychologically, humans are wired to resist change. The brain finds comfort in familiarity because it requires less effort to process. When we first encounter a person in a specific context, we build a mental model of who they are. That model becomes a kind of shortcut, allowing us to predict their behavior without thinking too deeply. But when that person begins to change, it disrupts the mental model, forcing the brain to adjust. And adjustment takes effort. That resistance is even stronger when the person in question becomes famous. Celebrities are not just individuals. They become symbols, and symbols are much harder to evolve in the public eye. Once Darci Lynne was labeled as the puppet girl, that identity stuck. Every new step she takes is filtered through that label, and anything that doesn't fit can feel surprising or even uncomfortable to audiences. This is where child stars face an even tougher battle. When someone grows up in front of the world, the audience forms a deep emotional attachment to the version of them they first met. That attachment can feel personal, even though the viewer has never met the person in real life. So when that child star begins to mature, experiment, or evolve, the audience can feel as though something familiar is being taken away. Instead of embracing the growth, some fans resist it. They want the same voice, the same style, the same personality. This can create pressure for young performers to stay in roles they have outgrown. In many cases, they are subtly pushed back into the identity that made them famous, even when they are ready to move forward. That expectation can quietly shape the direction of their entire career. Social media makes this even more intense. In earlier eras, celebrities could gradually evolve without constant public scrutiny. Today, every change is visible, immediate, and often judged in real time. A single performance, outfit, or song can spark thousands of comments, many of which compare the present version of a person to their past. These comparisons reinforce the idea that the old version was the real one, and anything new is a departure from that truth. This creates a psychological trap. The audience sees the past version as stable and comforting, while the present version feels uncertain or unfamiliar. For the performer, this can feel like trying to move forward while constantly being pulled backward. It's not just about talent anymore. It becomes a question of identity, perception, and control. For Darci Lynne, the shift from child prodigy to young adult performer is not just a natural progression. It is a transformation happening under a microscope. Every step she takes is observed, analyzed, and compared to who she used to be. And that pressure can influence how freely she chooses to evolve. But the deeper question is this: why does the audience hold on so tightly to a version of someone that time has already begun to change? What is it about certain talents that makes people resist letting go, even when growth is the most natural thing in the world? And as you start to think about that, it opens the door to something even more fascinating. Because what Darci Lynne does goes far beyond performance or fame. It's a skill that challenges perception itself. But here's the mystery. How does she make a puppet seem alive without moving her lips, and why can so few people master it? Stay tuned. The art of illusion. Ventriloquism may appear at first glance like a simple stage trick, a performer giving life and voice to a puppet. But beneath that smooth illusion lies one of the most demanding combinations of skill, discipline, and mental coordination in all of performance art. It is not just about making sound. It is about making people believe that the sound is coming from somewhere it clearly is not. At the heart of this art is the human brain and how it processes what it sees and hears. When an audience watches a ventriloquist perform, something fascinating happens inside their minds. The brain naturally tries to make sense of mixed signals, and in many cases, it places more importance on what the eyes see than on what the ears hear. This is why, when a puppet's mouth moves in sync with a voice, people instinctively believe the puppet is the one speaking. This effect is deeply rooted in how the brain works. It constantly combines visual and audio information to create a single, understandable experience of the world. When there is a conflict, like hearing a voice while seeing someone's lips remain still, the brain tends to trust the visual clue. This same principle is why voices in movies seem to come directly from the actors, even though they are recorded and played through speakers. Ventriloquism simply takes this natural process and uses it as the foundation of its illusion. However, the illusion would collapse instantly without precise vocal control. This is where the performer's true challenge begins. Speaking without moving the lips is extremely difficult, especially because many common sounds depend on lip movement. Letters like B, P, M, F, and V are especially hard to produce without visible motion. To overcome this, ventriloquists must carefully replace or reshape these sounds in ways that keep speech clear while maintaining the illusion. This requires intense training and constant awareness of how every word is formed. Beyond simple practice, this skill is almost scientific in nature. A ventriloquist must learn to control airflow, adjust tongue placement, and reshape the vocal tract to produce speech that sounds natural but avoids lip movement. It is not something that can be picked up casually. Instead, it requires retraining the body's natural speech patterns, which most people take for granted. Even a small mistake, a slight movement of the lips or a slip in pronunciation, can instantly break the illusion and remind the audience that they are watching a performance. This is why ventriloquism remains such a rare talent. It demands a unique combination of abilities that few people ever develop: vocal precision, deep understanding of perception, and strong stage presence. In a world driven by fast-paced entertainment, the art form is often overlooked, yet those who master it carry a skill that continues to captivate audiences in a very powerful way. When performed at a high level, ventriloquism creates more than just entertainment. It creates a shared experience where the audience willingly accepts a moment of impossible reality. That is exactly why performers like her stand out. She has kept her personal life mostly private, though in early 2024, she mentioned meeting someone at a wedding and liking his nervousness when speaking to her. That relationship reportedly did not last. Around the same time, she moved into her own apartment with a friend and admitted that adjusting to living independently was more difficult than expected. These moments show her learning real adult life away from the spotlight. Her family has remained close and supportive, with her father managing her career and her mother traveling with her. So, what do you think about her career change? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.